In Denver, Corky Gonzales was leading the crusade for justice, and all around there were things like trying to get bilingual education in schools, trying to get more Chicanos registered to vote, trying to get better pay for people that were in basically rather low-paying jobs. So, there were many different groups that were kind of vying for attention if they had some power, and that they could accelerate the social change and not just kind of sit back for another generation and see if things got better.
While there are many influences over the Chicano movement as a whole, during the 1960s and 70s, the most influential figure was Rodolfo Gonzales. As a prominent political leader and activist with many followers, he was able to further develop a name, legacy, and national identity of Mexican Americans and extend the rights of those individuals throughout the United States. Born on June 18, 1928 in Denver, Colorado, 2 years before the start of the Great Depression, Rodolfo Gonzales was born into an era of constant social change and discrimination. From a very young age, he was directly influenced by the economic pressures and the abundance of racism towards Chicanos and African Americans during this pivotal century. Growing up, Gonzales adopted the nickname Corky, endowed to him by his friends and family. This name followed him throughout his life and political activism, playing a significant role in his success as a boxer. Many individuals during this time period viewed boxing as an important source of entertainment, as a distraction from daily life. Corky's boxing career, however, came to an end in November of 1955. At that time, he was well known, and it was a result of his professional boxing career. It was quite the sport in the post-World War II era, and there were a lot of folks in different socioeconomic classes that followed it. Corky was probably Denver's premier boxer in that period, and based on his leadership abilities and name recognition, it was easy and natural to put him in a position of being a spokesperson. During the mid-20th century, white supremacy played a large role in racism against Chicanos. Police brutality, gang violence, and public segregation collectively led to the humiliation and demoralization of the Chicano identity. The 1974 landmark Supreme Court case, Hernandez v. Texas, ruled that the 14th Amendment guaranteed equal protection to all races, rather than just blacks and whites. Chicano segregation stems from the Mexican-American War. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo of 1848, which ended the war, called for the re-evaluation of the adjoining border between the two great empires. Therefore, the modern Southwest, previously Mexican territory, stripped Chicanos of their identity in their own native land. Chicanos view this land as Aztlan, a mythical theory of gaining power and equality in their race and policies by reversing the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The idea of reaching Aztlan was instituted into the philosophy of the Chicano movement. Those who supported this conception of civil rights followed a sacred literature known as El Plan Espiritual de Aztlan, which directly translated means the spiritual plan of Aztlan. In 1969, Corky wrote the epic poem Yo Soy Joaquin. The poem ultimately became a symbol of the movement, motivating others to join the fight towards equality. This poem caused Corky Gonzales to become widely acknowledged as a leader for the Chicano civil rights movement, later leaving him with a lasting legacy amongst all individuals in the United States. In 1966, Gonzales established an organization known as the Crusade for Justice. A grassroots movement located in Denver, the Crusade for Justice became an important site for Chicano activism. The Crusade wanted Chicano people to take pride in their culture, heritage, color, and language. They wanted Chicanos to stand proud instead of bowing subserviently to their oppressors. Additionally, the Crusade was one of the first organizations to take a position against the Vietnam War. During the Vietnam War, 88% of the men who were drafted into the war were either Hispanic or black, and 86% of the men that died in the war were also of either Hispanic or black heritage. The Crusade for Justice served as a constant opposition to the war. Their reasoning was simple. How could they support a war that was fighting for freedom and democracy 8,000 miles away when they didn't have the same freedom and democracy themselves in the United States? Although the Crusade's achievements during the Chicano movement were not given enough recognition, and many of the bad aspects of the Crusade were highlighted, the Crusade's struggle in obtaining equal rights for Chicanos has left a permanent mark in Chicano history. The emergence of the Crusades for Justice resulted in the beginning of many lasting organizations across the nation. Crusaders in America rallied constantly in public grounds to convince youth in local universities to join the cause. The abundance of young individuals in support of Chicano liberation moved Corky to push the movement further. Corky founded MECA, the Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, organization that connected universities in affected areas to bring youth together. Not only did MECA stand firm on liberation, but also furthered the teachings of self-determination, heritage, education, and pride. Corky was determined to recreate the identity and reputation of Chicanos in the future by starting with the youth.
What are the solutions? You say, well, first of all, we'll find out what the problem is. This is what you have to become in order to be what they want out of their schools. One thing they don't want to admit, that we have a different set of values.
The late 1960s and 70s brought major social change and some militant radical activities. J. Edgar Hoover's FBI responded by starting up the counterintelligence program more commonly known as COINTELPRO, which at times was illegal. The organization ultimately wanted to remove political groups that the FBI deemed as a potential threat to the country's well-being. The organization is also believed to have targeted groups and individuals that they deemed to be subversive, such as Martin Luther King Jr., the Congress of Racial Equality, the Rainbow Coalition, and many other groups involved in various civil rights movements. In May of 1974, 6 Chicano activists were killed in 2 different car bombings 48 hours apart. All of the victims were actively involved in the Chicano movement. The first explosion occurred on May 27th at Chautauqua Park in Boulder, Colorado. The 3 victims were 26-year-old Reyes Martinez, his 24-year-old girlfriend Una Jacola, and 21-year-old Neva Romero. The second bomb went off less than 48 hours later in the parking lot of a Burger King a few miles away from Chautauqua, killing 3 more Chicano activists. Most people in the Chicano community blame the deaths of these 6 individuals on COINTELPRO. However, the local and federal police, as well as the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, conducted an investigation and concluded that the 6 activists blew themselves up and deemed the event as a conspiracy theory while trying to make the explosive to blow up unknown areas in Boulder. Corky's main goal was to make Chicanos politically acknowledged across the nation, because he, along with many others, believed that political justice was the first step in racial desegregation. The legacy of Corky's influence on the party lasts to this day as predominant advocacy for Chicano liberation. After returning to Denver, Corky decided to immediately provide adequate schooling for many Chicanos in the Denver metro area suffering from abject poverty. Corky founded the Escuela Tlatelolco in the 1970s, a K-12 school to serve as a safe haven for bilingual students still in function today. The school runs by the motto, "Educating students, liberating minds." It is run by his daughter Nita Gonzales, who played a significant role in Corky's family affairs and participated in essential events that progressed during the movement. On April 12, 2005, Corky passed away in his homeland Denver, Colorado, and was honored by a march that took his cremated body through the streets of Denver. Students at his school have honored him by filling the halls with pictures, murals, and drawings made of him to remember his contribution to the Chicano movement. Corky will always be remembered by creating a new name and identity for Chicanos that was widely acknowledged, and driving identity politics to the point that desegregation seemed inevitable. Corky's legacy is one that a nation, race, culture, and many generations will look up to and remember for his influential leadership.
He was also an artist in his own right, the spoken word. I mean, we call it spoken word now, right? So he had a quote that was called, "No revolutions without poets."